where is it? We were supposed to see the sun today, and it was supposed to get up into the 70s. Now, granted, it's still kind of early in the morning, but it's quite chilly, my friends. Hi, this is Jill with North Texas Vegetable Gardening, canning recipes, a little bit of everything, and we are working away today. Kind of was hoping for some sunshine. But we'll take the drizzle. As always, we need the rain here in Texas, still, especially now. And as we suspected, November was quite the wet month. It looks like December, at least the first of it, may follow suit. We're expected to get rain almost every day next week, or at least a small chance, and we'll take that too. I had to come up here and get warm. It's still very chilly out there, and with the sun not coming out and the drizzle, it makes it a little chilly and kind of uncomfortable. So we got the high tunnels opened up right now because we're working in them, and high tunnels will get, if the sun is not out, they will get to the ambient temperature of what it is outside. So it's pretty much just as cool in there as it is outside. The only difference is there's a windbreak. So here in our area, as most of you know, if you're a new subscriber, we live in a part of Texas that has the black gumbo clay soil, and it starts all the way down at Houston and just like a riverbed or something travels up here. But once you get a little east of us, it turns into the red dirt. And so our black gumbo soil goes probably about 2.5 to 3 feet deep. Where our small high tunnel is, we have modified that soil probably over about a 15 or 16 year span of time. I've lived out here in this area since 2004, so almost 20 years, and started gardening in that spot shortly after, and we just have modified it every year with organic compost, sand to build it up, and it's just been a constant thing. And now in that little high tunnel, most of you know that we grow in containers in there, and will continue to grow in containers in the little high tunnel. However, in the large high tunnel, we are growing directly in the ground, and so we are now continuing to modify that soil. So when we put that big high tunnel up, we modified it. We added probably 2 truckloads of compost, a couple of truckloads of sand to bring it up, and then more truckloads of compost. We're using organic compost. We have used mushroom compost, and the mushroom compost is real good for retaining moisture. But right now, we don't want to retain moisture in that big high tunnel because it's causing some powdery mildew. When we go to modify it right before the spring, we probably will add a little bit more of that mushroom compost. But right now, we're using an organic compost that uses turkey manure and turkey feathers. And this is what we have decided to use instead of livestock cow manure, because cow manure tends to have a lot of nitrates in it. And also, if the cows were not raised organically, then they have a lot of salts in their manure because they use salt licks and stuff like that, especially from manure that comes from dairy farmers. So we're very particular with what kind of manure we use and what kind of compost we use, and to ensure that it's organically made. So the most important thing we can be doing right now, we're still in fall, but we call it winter because we are in December, is to load up our tubs, load up our high tunnels and our ground with organic compost. We need very good soil going into the spring so that we can fight off insects, we can fight off the powdery mildew, and we can have a good success rate in our spring and summer garden that's quickly coming. And we've gotten away from using chemical fertilizers altogether, especially those that are ammonium nitrate based, because in the high tunnels, they bring on the aphids. If you have soil that is high in nitrogen and ammonium nitrates, it's going to bring in insects that really like that moist, warm sometimes environment in those high tunnels, and we have just battled aphids constantly. And so we're very particular, and we have to build this soil up, but we want to stay away from the commercial chemical fertilizers and compost that's going to cause us trouble from here on out, guys, and it'll cause us trouble starting now, but especially in the spring and the summer. Now, Greg and I started practicing the regenerative soil method of gardening earlier this year. Very enlightening, and it's very important that we stay this course because we don't want to use chemical insecticides, we don't want to use chemical fertilizers, we don't want to use chemical fungicides. We want to regenerate our soil that has been farmed probably before we moved out here almost 20 years ago, has been farmed prior to that, probably 50 to 75 years. And we have things in our yard, or spots in our yard where nothing will grow, and we have a pretty good idea as to why. But Greg is using a cover crop on the back acre, and he is using a cover crop in the front yard that's fenced in, because we're trying to build our soil naturally and rejuvenate it with natural organic minerals and vitamins and all the things that it needs and how the Lord intended it to be, without all the ammonium and all the sprays that have gone into this soil probably for many, many years. So it's going to be quite an extended time before we get to where we want to get, but we're getting there, and we're trying to do it very quickly. Now, if you've been watching, you know that we've converted 3 of our raised beds pretty quickly with that mycorrhizal into very good organic rich soil, and things are growing fantastic in there. And guys, that's our goal to do on our whole property. We only have 2 acres, but our goal is to do that on our total property, get this soil back to the way the Lord intended it without using chemicals and fertilizers. And to provide you with a good visual, this is the pasture next to ours. This is what our back pasture used to look like. And this is what our back pasture looks like. You can see it's quite green. And we have less of the brown dead grass. A lot of that is oats. Some of it is sunflower, which froze up or froze off. But you can see we're already seeing a difference on this back acre of some progress with these cover crops and that mycorrhizal. So this is the cover crop in our front yard. We have let it freeze off. Greg's gonna let it go, and when it dries up a little bit, he'll take the next step, and I think he's gonna mow it down and then reseed. I'm not sure how he's gonna do that, but we're trying to stay away from tilling it because this is his 3rd cover crop in the front yard, and we don't want to disturb and the good fungi and the good biomatter that's in it. We want to make sure and maintain it. So this compost was 10 cubic yards delivered, and it was about $700, almost $800. We're probably going to have to get another load, possibly 2, to get that big high tunnel situated. So Greg has pulled up the weed cloth that we had here in the middle, and you can see it was close to 1/3 of the high tunnel that we were losing and growing, other than when we had the cucumbers out here. So he's fixing to till this up. And then we have to till this, guys, because it's compacted. But he's going to till this up, and then we are going to begin layering our organic matter on top of it, getting ready for our spring and summer garden. So the most important thing you can be doing right now, even though it seems like it's the off season for growing your own food and gardening, it really isn't. It's a year-round deal. The most important thing you can be doing is strengthening your soil and starting to add your compost now, your organic matter, and build it up and layer it so that by the time the spring rolls around, it's going to be primo and ready for you to plant. We're still new to cover cropping, but we're learning very quickly. I don't know that there's anything right now you can put in the ground that's going to help it other than maybe some radishes, the daikon radish or regular radishes. I know that your root crops are good for your soil. And if you decide to do that and go ahead and put something in the ground, be sure and dust them with the mycorrhizal. And you can get that off Amazon. We got the gold star or the black gold or something like that variety. Just be sure and dust your root crops with this mycorrhizal so that it does get down into your soil and it'll be ready for you in the spring and the summer. So I know that the bulk of our community are people that are growing their own food and they're canning and preserving and just trying to be more self-sustainable. So my community, the best thing you can do right now to prepare for your spring and summer garden is to start building your soil with organic compound, and you want to do again the layer. And if you're going to do cover crops, you want to make sure and do root vegetables. We don't think that oats or anything like that are going to be successful with cold weather. Ryegrass is, but you have to terminate ryegrass, and that could be a lengthy process. So that's why we've not gone the ryegrass method for our cover crops. Also, if you've been following us, you know that we kept our cover crops growing around our tomatoes last year in that little high tunnel. I don't know that we'll do that this year, but it did aid that soil in our tomatoes last year, or I should say last summer. I keep wanting to say last year because it was gardening year. It did aid our tomato plants and kept them fed and kept the good biology, the soil biology, really good and healthy. Again, I don't know that we'll do that this year. Talk more with Greg about that and we'll see. But you can see how it strengthened the soil out there where Greg was picking it up and moving it through his hands. So it really, really does help cover cropping and building your soil. So guys, that is the most important thing that you can do right now, is starting to build your soil so that you will have a successful spring and summer garden next year. It'll be here before you know it. We'll be starting seeds, especially our tomato plants, sometime this month to go into the ground, maybe February or March, as long as we can keep them safe and healthy and away from any late frost or freezes. But yeah, and then we'll be starting our other spring and summer seeds shortly after, probably sometime around we'll put them in the ground around the 1st of March. So we'll be starting seeds for those probably in January. So now's the time, guys, to start planning your spring and summer garden next year, because you need to know if it's time for you and when it's time for you to go ahead and start your seeds in your little seed trays and then move them into little 3-inch pots. And if it's not time, by the time they're ready to come out of 3-inch pots, you can transfer over to a 6-inch pot and put them in the ground after there's a danger of frost or a freeze if you're unable to provide them with proper protection for that. As always, thank you for watching us. We love each and every one of you. We appreciate all of your commitment to us and your support to us. And we love you more than you know. And we will be in touch. Take care. God bless, and talk to you soon.